All right, we start in Kenya this morning and see what we can find on the Daily Nation. It says here, revealed cooking oil and rice tycoons. It's a scandal. 22 firms were pre-qualified, but criteria of awarding tenders raises many questions. Trade CS Moses Kuria yesterday tabled a list of 11 companies contracted by the Kenya National Trading Corporation to import various commodities in a plan to lower food prices. Four of them, which bagged 6.85 billion shillings deals, are linked to city businesswoman Mary Wambui. On page 6 and 7. You know, I like how, the Kenyan newspapers always just go all out, when they're exposing corruption or allegations of corruption.
There's no hiding place.
Yeah. Also in corruption, whistleblower in NHIF heist hospitals expose fears for his life. Of course, one of the most popular stories across the world now is the search for the submersible.
Yeah.
Those, of course, they've been termed rich people who made an attempt to go see the Titanic. The search for missing Titanic submersible.
Praying for their own demise.
Yeah, they say it's like going into space. So it's a really sad story, and we, of course, our prayers up. Hope that they come back home, but from what everyone has read, the chances are very slim. So we're just hoping that something else, has happened to the submersible. Maybe it is stuck somewhere, that isn't necessarily, and unfortunately, cannot be opened from inside. I think that's one of the biggest challenges.
Yes, it's been locked from outside. So they're just trying to get the sounds. They've gotten some sounds under the water, and they said they don't even know. So they had interviewed one of the leaders of the rescue operation team and had asked him, what can you make of the sound? He said they only heard the sound the night before, and they are processing the sounds. They're not quite sure what it is.
I think the sounds, the whole we heard some sounds was a fake story.
You think?
Well, yeah, it was.
Well, I did see an interview from someone in the search and rescue team, but I don't know. Anyway.
All right. Finally, on the Daily Nation, food prices, fares to go up as MPs vote to increase fuel costs. These are the big stories on the Daily Nation this morning. Let's go to South Africa now. See if there are brighter stories over there.
Well, very interesting stories here on South Africa's Sowetan. The first story that caught my eye: MEC ordered to pay for bad road crash. Biker wins damage cost. This is a very interesting story, Osauge. I'm just going to highlight it to you. It says the High Court has ruled that the MEC for Public Works is 100% liable for a motorcyclist suffering severe injuries in an accident on a poorly maintained road. In 2015, Ryan Bruce, 43, lost control of his motorcycle while heading around the curve on the road, and an inspection revealed the road had severe undulations, bumps, and poor pumping on the road surface. Asage, imagine we were to do this in Nigeria or in other parts of the continent, where anybody who has an accident and it can be proved, it can be proven that this accident was caused as a result of the potholes on the road, the Minister of Transport would be the one to be held liable for it. Because, if they did that in many countries around the continent, we would then start seeing these different ministries sitting up and doing what they need to do.
Well, I remember that's basically saying that people need to be held to account for
But nobody's really being held to account. If people have an accident on
even before we get to the stage, of being able to sue the ministers or sue governors. Of course, here you can't. But even before you get to that stage, the simple demand to just be accountable. If you're in charge of security, we should be able to hold you to account. If you're in charge of healthcare, we should be able to hold you to account. Education, the same thing. But we don't have a lot of that here. Before we even get to the stage of being able to sue the government or sue the state.
Yeah. Anyway, still on the front page of the Sowetan, Zim exemption permits. I didn't have to consult. Minister hits back at protesters demanding consultation over ZEP's extension. Group claimed communities should have been engaged before decision was effected on page 3. Mo and Findi, don't marry your carbon copy. I don't know what that is about. On page 17, Hellman, he mustn't coach. Bafana assistant not qualified for bench. Meet the next breakout stars on page 14. We can see here a photograph. It's a delegation led by community leader Loyiso Toye on the left and Reverend Tokwani of the Methodist Church arriving at the Union Building in Pretoria yesterday to conference with the presidency about the high levels of crime in the north of Johannesburg. That's all we can take this morning on the Sowetan. Let's come to the west of the continent and see what the Guardian in Nigeria has to say.
All right. Here in Nigeria, it says here what we just spoke about. spoke about, not spoked. Proposed 114% pay rise for public officers complicates minimum wage negotiations. It says Nigeria needs state police to tackle insecurity, says ex-Agric Minister Aldo Ogbe. Why UK government banned dependent visa for Nigerian students, and that's by the High Commissioner. Also, PEPC, APM closes petition challenging Tinubu's victory, court adjourns to July 14th. Tinubu pushes for FDI as world leaders seek inclusive financial system at Paris summit. And also, freed inmate narrates 14-year prison experience for not cooperating with policemen. It's a really pathetic story. But yes, the big story, and I think the major conversation across Nigeria this morning is the proposed 114% pay rise for public officers. And of course, the RMAFC, claiming that it is still a proposal. It has not been approved yet.
All right. And this is where we want to see what the NLC will do. Very interesting. Right. Still on the front page of still in the continent, on the west of the continent in Nigeria. Let's see what the Daily Trust has to say. 201 killed in Plateau in 5 months. 20 vigilantes, villagers killed in fresh attacks. We took this story yesterday. Still remains an unfortunate incident, and the people of Plateau, our hearts go out to you. External forces behind killings, says the governor. Who are the external forces behind these killings? We would like to know. NGO blames herders and farmers' rivalry. Military meets stakeholders. So if you look at that graph here, you can see the breakdown of the killings in Plateau State from the 19th of January to the 20th of June 2023. 201 people. That's a lot of people killed in just 5 months. Which way? Federal government pledges more dollar supply to stabilize Naira. Kano government, which is something that, when we're having this conversation last week, we're asking, isn't it something they should have done before floating the Naira, but then again, it is what it is. Kano governor reinstates anti-graft boss, or Kano government reinstates anti-graft boss suspended by Ganduje. Nigeria's economic decisions being noticed globally by UK envoy. 436 students just so for 30 overseas PTDF scholarship in the Northeast. New exchange rates jack up international airfares. Man, I saw the airfares this morning and I can't tell you how my heart has been palpitating. And while I was doing my makeup, I decided to check airfares and it's not even funny at all. It was bad already because, of course, this is summer season.
Now it's getting worse.
It's getting worse. Anyway, Bawa remains in DSS custody 1 week after, and 14% salary hike for president, VP, governors, others. A proposal by RMAFC. And I service proposal, if you ask me. But that's all that we can take this morning.
Yeah.
On the front. Okay.
I apologize. I wanted to mention we're going to be having a conversation this morning on the security situation with the new service chiefs, right? What they need to do. But I think it's important to say, from the story that you read, 201 persons killed in Plateau State.
In 5 months.
In 5 months. And these are 201 Nigerians, right? These are 201 lives that the government promised to protect, failed to protect. The attitude that Nigerians have towards these killings these days, and you've repeatedly mentioned that we seem to have gotten numb over time, towards when we hear stories of death. When you hear that dozens were murdered the night before, we've gotten used to it. Plateau State government is saying that these, people were killed by external forces, which makes it even worse. Yes. That you have foreign agents, foreign persons, foreign, whatever, criminals in your state and in your country murdering your citizens, and it's not it should be nothing else. Nothing else whatsoever should be of utmost priority to any single government. The fact that you have people being murdered in their hometowns, no matter how we try to paint it, but it's because we've seemingly gotten used to it. The president currently, I think, is in France for a summit. Nothing should be more important than protecting those lives in Plateau State. And I hope that we do not carry the same attitude from the previous administration into this administration.
Right. Very well. There's really nothing more to add to this. We'll go on a break now. When we come back, we'll be heading into our top stories to discuss some of the biggest stories around the continent. And if you'd like to engage with us at News Central TV on all social media platforms is how you engage with us. Stick around.